So here we go, folks. An execution of one of the more rare NHL rules in the book. Because today we're talking about former Toronto Maple Leafs goaltender Cayden Primeau, who was just claimed off of waivers today by the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, there are a bunch of tweets going out there and talking about the situation, but Cayden Primeau is 26 years old, 6'3", 203, left-handed catching goaltender, initially a Montreal Canadiens draftee who was very, very good with Northeastern University in the NCAA. He then played himself into the NHL over the next few years, from 2019 all the way to 2025, where last season he was literally the worst goaltender in the NHL. .836 save percentage, .470 goals against, 11 games played. He didn't win much. It was not a good season for Cayden Primeau last year. He was good in the AHL, but with Jacob Fowler entering the mix, it wasn't like Cayden Primeau's spot was going to be secure for very long. Which is why, when he got sent over to the Carolina Hurricanes, this is where things got very interesting. The Montreal Canadiens traded Cayden Primeau over to the Canes for a 7th-round pick. That was it. And to start things out, Primeau actually didn't end up playing any hockey games with Carolina. Instead, he got placed on waivers, and instead he got claimed by the Toronto Maple Leafs. This was about a month ago. The Leafs claimed Primeau and Sammy Blais. By the way, Blais actually doing pretty alright. Nice to see that out of another former Montreal Canadien. But Cayden Primeau, in his limited Toronto Maple Leafs sample, had himself 3 games played, a .430 goals against, and an .838 save percentage. He also went 2-1-0, winning 2 out of the 3 games. The Leafs supported Primeau with some pretty good showings themselves. They had scored 7 and 4 goals in the games that Primeau played. They also had 3 on the night where Cayden Primeau allowed 6 to the Columbus Blue Jackets. And it was around this time where I saw a lot of Leafs fans saying, oh, well, Cayden Primeau, he really isn't that good. But that's okay, because he's 3rd string, 4th string, whatever you want to call it. Best case scenario, if everybody's healthy, Primeau is in the AHL. But now it seems like things are getting a little bit healthier in Toronto, which is why Primeau was on waivers, and it's why the Carolina Hurricanes had the chance to claim him. But now, this is where things get interesting, because he is listed as a Cane on Elite Prospects, but Elliotte Friedman gave us the scoop. Primeau is assigned to AHL Chicago, as the Hurricanes were the only claim, and they were the team the Maple Leafs took him from. Elliotte Friedman avoiding the word "the" like the plague. Yeah, we can reword this tweet a little bit nicer if you add "the." Cayden Primeau was assigned to the AHL Chicago Wolves, as the Carolina Hurricanes were the only claim, and they were the team that the Maple Leafs took him from. So this is one of those interesting rules that we don't see often in the NHL, but it still does exist. The purpose of waivers is to give guys that are getting sent down to the AHL the opportunity to still play in the NHL scot-free. Cayden Primeau was attempted to get sent down earlier in the year, but Toronto, they kind of needed a goalie. They needed a bunch of guys, so they ended up giving Primeau a chance to stick around in the National Hockey League, and then they placed him on waivers when they were done with him. But the rule goes as follows. If the only claim the second go-around is the team that initially had the player, then the player gets the right to get sent to the AHL without any consequences and without any waivers. This is really rare. I think it only really happens maybe once every few years, because how rare is it to see a guy get claimed back and forth and claimed as well by the team that had him before? I'm thinking of a few situations. I think there were some trades that we saw of guys going back to their old team. Alex Barré-Boulet, I thought, was one of them, but still, this is that NHL rule being used to a T. He's going to be sent down to the AHL, and the Carolina Hurricanes are going to continue to run a goaltending tandem that includes Pyotr Kochetkov, Freddie Anderson. You also got Brandon Bussi in there. He's been obviously fun to follow throughout the course of his career. But Kochetkov, he's coming back, right? So he is all of a sudden available for the Carolina Hurricanes, and that gives a lot of hope for what that team could be able to do. Cayden Primeau going down to the AHL. He's been very good there, so obviously it's a positive place for him to be. I do kind of get a little sentimental thinking about this guy, though, honestly. Like, he was so good with Northeastern in the late 2010s, and he inevitably got to a spot where Canadiens fans were saying, oh yeah, he's a 7th-round pick. Look at that. He's so amazing. He's one of the best goalies in the NCAA. He's going to come into Montreal, and he's going to be a starter. And he had a .931 save percentage in his first 2 games with the Habs. That was so exciting for Canadiens fans back in that season. But as the years went on, Cayden Primeau just never showed off in the NHL long-term, tangible results. Yes, he had one season where he had a .910 save percentage in 23 games played, but he followed that up immediately with the .836 year. So it just totally fell away, the idea of Cayden Primeau becoming a top-tier starter in the National Hockey League. At the very least, during this .910 season that he had, he was 24 years old. So it's like, okay, well, you have time for goalies to develop. They don't usually hit their peaks until 29, 30, 31-ish. So this was a very optimistic season for Canadiens fans, but the year after totally crumbled all hopes, and he was an AHL guy for the most part. I think that's pretty much the verdict on Primeau nowadays, right? Too good for the AHL, consistently one of the best, but NHL still leaves a lot to be desired, and maybe not trustworthy enough to be a tweener or a 1B or whatever. Cayden Primeau has gone through a pretty difficult career path, but now he'll be continuing it in the American Hockey League. So with that in mind, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as to this weird NHL rule finally being exercised and put into practice. It's been a while, I'd say, but thanks to Elliot Friedman, we now know that this is the situation here. Leafs lose. Depressed Buffalo sports fan goes out there and says, is he still a Leaf? No, he is not a Leaf. He is a Carolina Hurricane, but he's just going to be playing in their farm affiliate system. I mean, if the Carolina Hurricanes could have used any extra players, I think they probably could have used some more defense. Shane Gostisbehere doesn't look like he's coming back anytime soon, but Primeau, they got some help on the back end for their AHL team, so I guess that's pretty good, right? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Primeau getting claimed by Carolina and sent to the AHL scot-free. I hope you enjoyed this video. Say 9 and bye.